Hello, beautiful people. I am so excited for episode 6 of the Conscious Hotline, your source for all things conscious and hot. Today, I'll be joined by a sweet, sweet woman who I have known since we were 14. We used to be on lacrosse team together at St. Mary's Academy. And I'm just so happy to have her on the show. And we're going to talk about the dark side of addiction. I think people like to really make sobriety seem like this beautiful journey of overcoming obstacles and then you're good, right? You've been sober. And I really wanted to have my queen friend on today to just educate and inform and shine light on and show experience for a different journey and a different story. And obviously everyone's journeys and stories are always completely different. So I want to honor that, her story is going to be different from someone else's. But I'm just really excited to dive in with her on what we by the dark side of sobriety and what that looks like. So she's joining shortly. Hi.
Hi. Oh, so good to see
Good
you.
to see you, Queen. Full transparency, one of the reasons I was late to start this is because I had to get my brows right for my girl. I was like,
Okay. Okay.
if I'm talking aloud, I need to have good eyebrows.
Mine are they look okay today.
Oh, you're a queen every day. I'm like brow inspo for life by you.
Oh, thank you so
Yeah. Well, thanks for joining the Conscious Hotline today. Your source for all things conscious and hot.
much. I'm here.
Good. I wanted to start off this episode with we do like a juicy get to know you question.
Okay.
And so your question is, what is something that you don't want anyone to know about you?
Oh, that's a good I don't know if it's one thing comes to mind. I don't know if it's something that I don't want anyone to know about me, but it's like maybe like a guilty pleasure, something I don't really tell people. But I really love reality TV. Like that juicy, like Bad Girls Club.
Ooh, like the trashy reality TV.
Yes. I love that stuff. It's great.
Yeah. There's
And
a new one that you and I should binge together. It's like Survivor, but they're doing spiritual retreats in Costa Rica and doing like personal growth and development and like breath work until they throw up and like
what the fuck?
it's some Portland-esque shit for sure.
Portland. Yeah.
So you're in Portland right now.
I am.
How are you feeling? How is the pulse of the city?
I pretty much just like stay away from downtown because it doesn't feel too safe. From where I live in the West Hills, so I can hear how there's
Okay, fancy.
siren. No, but yeah, like you can feel the energy. You can feel that people are kind of like in this collectively. So that's a cool thing to experience. Obviously, the reality of what's going on around us is something else. Something
Yeah.
before.
Well, I don't know, but my judgment of Portland is that there's a lot of anarchists that are hijacking the Black Lives Matter movement for their like goal of creating some sort of Pacific Northwest utopia called Cascadia that's separate from the United States of America.
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah, I'm just like, okay, great. This is what they've been waiting for, an opportunity for some, I don't even know what to call it.
I think a lot of people are just angry and don't even know what they're angry about. So they're kind of just joining the Black Lives Matter movement as an excuse to like express that without really being like for the movement,
Yeah, like a lot of videos I've seen, it's mostly white men.
Yeah.
But also, I'm like, if people are getting tear gassed and rubber bulleted, let it be the white men. Thank you, white men.
Friends that have been out there like a lot, and it's cool to hear that a lot of the white people have kind of been on the front lines like protecting the Black people. So that's cool that people are using their privilege that way.
Yeah, definitely. And I know that we have used our privilege to create access to opportunity for a lot of people too. So I'm excited to dive in with you today on a more personal level, but I appreciate you sharing because I think it's important to acknowledge like the world we are living in.
Totally.
And what is taking place in our shared community, your current community. And yeah, I mean, I'm glad that you can feel safe outside of downtown, that still exists. And I'm hoping that this creates some sort of massive societal transformation. I'm hoping that, I don't know, maybe we create a rule where, the president can't put federal officers in states unless the governor signs off on it, or like some sort of fix for this problem.
Yeah. Yeah. You know what's kind of interesting that comes to mind right now? The first time I went to rehab, I was like out of it, like I was like not sane at all. But
How old were you?
21. It was a week after my 21st birthday.
Oh, shit.
Yeah. So
welcome to legal drinking, aka sober life.
Yeah. But it was funny because when I was in group, I was like, the revolution is coming. And they were like, okay, girl. And I was like, no, really, the revolution is coming. I can feel it. And I was reflecting on that the other day, and I was like, I was fucking right. Like, that was like 10 years ago. No, like 8 years ago. But even then, I could like feel it brewing, And like now, I feel like it's happening.
It is happening. And it's really important for me that I am with the right side of history.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, I know you are too. I love that you're like, I don't even know what you would call it, but you were definitely in an altered state of being. So you're like intuitions and insights while you were in this altered state of being, detoxing, actually had some validity to it. And I think that's a beautiful narrative that we don't hear a lot when it comes to drug use and sobriety, of like some of the things, even a broken clock is right twice a day, right? So some of the things that you're thinking and feeling and saying have truth to them. Like when my brother was in psychosis, there was a lot that he was saying where I was like, that's fucking real. Like,
And a lot of people just write it off as like, oh, you're crazy. Like, you're not in your right state of mind. Like, you don't know what you're talking about. But like, who's really to say what is reality and what isn't,
Mm-hmm. I mean, especially if we want to get into like physics and like quantum physics and like, well, because then it's like, everything's imaginary and it's just lines and like we're living in multiple dimensions simultaneously and like it's really meta really fast.
Yeah.
So the more I learn about science, the more I'm like, yeah, what is real? It's 100% perception. And even that is impacted by like how much light, what color my eyes are impacts what I can perceive in the world, because the amount of light that can come into my eyes. Like I can take in more light than a blue-eyed person because I have brown eyes, and like all of that impacts perception.
Wild.
I know. I'm a nerd about
I know
the body.
So cool. I wish I understood it better, but every time I learn stuff like that, it's just like incredible.
Yeah. The last episode I did was with this neuroscientist, and she was talking about how we have like trillions of neural connections going on, and mine are different from yours, are different from someone else's, and that's what like creates our reality, our like neural connections. And that there's trillions of them a day. I'm like, I can't even fathom that number.
Yeah.
Anytime I say anything like that, I'm like billions and billions. I just feel like Donald Trump. Like,
oh God. No hands. No, just kidding. Your hands are.
So, I'm really grateful that you wanted to be on here and kind of talk about, like, I called it the dark side to sobriety, because I just really want this show to be like the real, like people talk about like, oh, my life was horrible and now I'm sober and my life's amazing. And I'm like, I don't really think it works like that.
Yeah. I don't think that it's that streamlined for most people.
Yeah.
I think there's like certain group. Well, I got sober in rehab, and I stayed sober through AA. So I believe in AA very much. I don't go to meetings regularly anymore. I don't have a sponsor that I call every day. I don't do those things that I did in recovery in the first year or two. I think that I've kind of found what works for me and like adapted my spirituality in a way that I can be sober and feel like I'm living a fulfilling life, but like I'm not really adhering to all the principles that AA says right? So,
can you give context for people that have no idea about AA or what that means?
Oh, for sure. So Alcoholics Anonymous is a 12-step group. It was founded by two white dudes in like the 30s. And I think the literature is incredible, but it's like really, really dense. Like I had to have people sit with me and explain everything word for word.
And you're a smart ass bitch.
I consider myself to be, but like the language they use is just like unlike anything I've ever read before. It's very weird, but to me, it's relatable. To me, a lot of that, even though it's like old language and it's hard to understand, I connected with it. And so this program is based off of this book of the 12 steps. And essentially what the steps are is, to me, it's a path to enlightenment. So it's a way to have a spiritual experience, and through having a spiritual experience, you're transformed and you have a new life. And that was totally my experience through AA. And I think that maybe since I got to that point, I was able to kind of like adapt my life in a way to where, to something that works for me now.
Because I haven't actually heard you say, like my spiritual practice before, and you're someone I've known for years. So I just was like curious about that and wanted to check in.
Yeah, I think AA is a very spiritual program, and that's what I learned from it the most, and what I got from it is just a way to live life through spiritual principles that I kind of like reflect on every day and that I've made a part of.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I love hearing that someone who didn't come from that background of like daily spiritual practice found it through like you wouldn't necessarily think of like, oh, drug usage is going to lead me to God or spirit or whatever you want to call it. But that seems to be what I'm hearing you say was your experience of it.
Yeah, totally. And like, me, like we went to an all-girls Catholic school, but even though I was raised Catholic, the whole idea of like religion to me,
like...
yeah, like it just like, I've learned that I'm a spiritual person, and I do believe in my concept of what God is, of a higher power. And it's not really religion. Like I appreciate the rituals of religion and the stories of the Bible, those sorts of things, but I've definitely come to like my own spirituality, whatever it is that I truly believe, without all of these ideas of like what I should believe or what is truth, because I think truth is different for everyone. Yeah.
And I think we need more of that understanding that truth is different for everyone in relation, especially to like the civil rights resurgence that we're in the midst of like my truth can be different from your truth, and nobody's truth is necessarily like, if it's your lived experience, that's your lived experience. And I want to honor that, even if it's different from mine.
Yeah.
And that's what we need, man. That's what I love about the sober community is y'all keep it so real with each other. You're real with yourselves. You're real with each other. Like I've never met a sober person that's gone through recovery that isn't like, here's my stuff.
Here you go.
Yeah, but there's not like this facade, of like, oh, I want people to see me a certain way. I want to be seen a certain way. So I'm going to present myself this way.
I've heard before in AA that spirituality is for people that have been to hell, and religion is for people that want to avoid going to hell. Something like that. And I think that's what brings people in recovery so close together. Like I went to rehab with people that are rich and white from like New Jersey or like wherever, like.
Where'd you go in the United States?
The first place I went to was in Oregon. It's called Hazelden, and now they're partnered with Betty Ford. Yeah, so bougie as fuck. And then I went to Southern California. I went to multiple places there before I could maintain any like amount of sobriety. I think I counted once I went through like 11 detoxes and rehabs. So it took me a while, but Southern California is where I spent the bulk of my time. And I think through like recovery is something where you're truly fighting for your life. And I met these people that I had literally nothing in common with. But as I got to know them, I realized that I had more in common with them than the people that I had grown up with in some ways. It feels like we're fighting for our lives together. And I think that's why we're so connected. And that's why we don't fuck around and we just tell it like it is. And I consider myself someone that if I care about you, I'm going to call you on your shit because I care about you. And I think you've always been that way. You've always been that way with me. So I think that you might be able to relate to that a little bit.
Yeah. Well, thank you for saying that. Because I think being a Libra, I really want to be liked. That's my like thing. I don't want people to know about me, right? It's like deep down, I definitely want people to see me in a certain light. Like my ego runs the show sometimes. And so for you to say like you've called me out on my shit, even as kids, like I really appreciate that because I've done my best, but I definitely am very honest about my flaws. We've got someone that asked a question. They said, could you describe how you felt when you finally decided to go to rehab? What was going through your mind?
Oh my God. If I could continue to drink and use the way that I was without the consequences, I still because I wanted to be sober. I went to rehab. I wanted to stop having the consequences I was having. I wanted to stop overdosing. I wanted my sister to talk to me. I wanted my parents to stop crying every night. Like, I just didn't want those things anymore. So I was completely defeated. I walked in there thinking my life was over. Like, truly, I was
At 21, you thought your life was over.
Yeah. Yeah, I really did. I just had no sense of direction. And I thought that I'm just going to go here for a little bit and get everyone off my ass. And in a month, I'll be cured. That's what I thought recovery was. I thought
like they were going to give you a pill that would make.
I thought that maybe I was just going to talk about my problems and sit in these therapy groups. And once I did that for a little bit, I was going to feel better. And then I would learn how to drink normally. An alcoholic.
Which you good girl, you've never done that. Like since we were kids, you've never drank normally.
No, I remember one time in chemistry, I was talking about my weekend and I was saying like, oh yeah, like I blacked out. Or no. It was another girl talking about her weekend and she was saying how she blacked out. And I was like, what do you mean black? And she's like, like when you forget everything that happened. And I was like, wait, isn't that the point? Like, I literally thought that's why everyone was drinking, to forget everything. That was my goal every single time. And that was the first time I realized, like, I don't drink normally. I'm not like these people.
Mm.
But I thought that y'all were missing out. I was like, oh, y'all are doing it wrong.
Mm-hmm. Because you were having fun escaping.
I thought I was having fun. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that correction. You were having fun. No, I thought I was having fun.
Hmm?
Yeah.
It wasn't fun for everyone around me that had to take care of me.
Yeah. No, I remember we went to a couple of raves where I was like, I can't go out with her anymore.
No, yeah.
Stressful.
Yeah. I don't blame you. A lot of people, I don't have a lot of friends from high school anymore that I'm really connected with besides you. And I think Anna is another one that I consider that I'm still connected with because all the others, like I just put people through hell and I don't blame anyone. I don't hold any resentments towards anyone that had to walk away from our friendship because to me, that's an act of self-love. Like I was truly, truly destructive. And I think anyone that wanted to cut ties with me, like I understand why they did that because I was a fucking shitty person.
Yeah. And it looks like someone just said, still love you so much, Laura. So I'm like, even though I never thought you were terrible, but I definitely empathize greatly with your parents because you were so IDGAF. And there was no making you do anything or go anywhere. And so I feel like part of you has now dedicated your life to helping other people that are struggling with whether it's housing or mental health or health issues or addiction recovery. And so like what's that journey like, both being in it but then working in it, because you're like eat, sleep, drink, being in that world?
Yeah, it's incredibly rewarding. I just got a new job recently. I'm a medical assistant, so I'm not working at the place that I used to work at anymore, but the place that I used to work at outside in, that's a place that I used their services when I used their needs. And I just remember people treating me with dignity and like not talking down on me and not telling, oh, you're going to die. Just making me feel what I already felt ashamed about. And to have the opportunity to work somewhere like that, where I was a medical assistant at their clinic, and to see myself, many of the clients, it just fills my heart in ways I can't even describe. Because the people that use services there are people that often have had negative experiences in other places, because healthcare workers might look at them and think that, oh, they're shooting heroin, like they must not care about themselves, or they must be too lazy to find a job, or like all of these misconceptions that we have about people that use drugs. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
bullshit. So to be a part, like, kind of like you were saying, like on the right side of history,
Mm-hmm.
be a part of the solution, and to be a part of an organization that treats people like people, I think was it really, it's been
Yeah.
very.
Yeah, I had my wisdom teeth removed at Outside In. They have a dental clinic that
Oh,
comes like 2 or 3 times a year. And
yeah,
I got in at the very end of the day, and the doctor, we're in a van outside of the clinic.
the
And he's
mobile.
like, I only have 5 minutes, set the timer. And I was like, you must be kidding. And he's like, I'm not. I do this in Africa all day. I'll do like 500 people in a day. And the lady set a timer, like a kitchen timer for 5 minutes. And he took pliers and he's like, I only have time for one side, left or right. And I was like, is this a joke? Like, I guess my left. And he just popped him out, put some cotton balls in my mouth, and was like, have a great day. And I was in and out in 5 minutes.
Yeah.
To get my tonsils removed. And yeah, not my tonsils, my wisdom teeth, but definitely I've only had positive experiences there. And I was just curious, like, what it's like to be work in your own recovery and then working with people in recovery or not in recovery. And like, was that triggering, or what was that like for you from the addiction side? Because as someone that's battling addiction, what I've heard, and again, I can't claim to know anything about this, is that like, it never goes away. There's always maybe like an itch. And so to have someone come in and know that they have a substance that you maybe want to do secretly or deep down, or a part of you does, like, what's that like, if you don't mind me asking?
No, yeah, there was times where it was extremely triggering, and you're right. It's like the, like no one has ever recovered, or I should only speak for myself. I will never be recovered. I am in recovery and I work at it every day, but there's always the chance that one day I'm going to be having a bad day and I'm going to stumble upon a bag of meth and I'm going to think it's a good idea to shoot it up. And that's where the spirituality comes in. And that's where staying connected with other people in recovery is so, so important, because it helps me stay further away from the drugs and the alcohol. Because when I'm living my life with it, I'm like honoring my spirit, and I'm filling my life with people that do the same for me and that are interested in doing the same for themselves. It kind of helps me to stay focused on like, what is it that I really want? Like, do I want to feel good for 30 minutes and then everything else after that is just going to be the most horrific experience ever? Because that's what meth is. It literally, like, I tell people that, think about the best orgasm you've ever had in your entire life, multiply that by 100. Like, shooting meth, there shouldn't be something in this world that feels that good. It's my favorite feeling in the world, but everything that comes after it is catastrophic. It's horrific. Coming down and then like fainting and everything, it's like,
Is this be immediate after the come down?
Not at the beginning. Not when I first started doing it. I think at first, when I thought that I had some sort of control, I was able to like enjoy the high, but then be okay not being high. But then I got to a point where I had to stay high, or normal. High was my new normal.
Mm. And I mean, that progresses for so many people in such different ways, but I'm sure it can happen over the course of a week.
Yeah.
That transition. Yeah. I mean, I have a family member suffering from a meth addiction, and it's like, I mean, at this point, everyone's just like, we've done the interventions, we've offered rehab, we've offered therapies, we've moved her, we've gotten her away from her community of drug users. Like, we've tried all the things, but at the end of the day, it's that like individual choice, I think. And so I'm like, is there a way to instill that desire of sobriety into someone? I mean, both ways of living sound like they come with their own set of challenges.
Yeah, yeah, I think you're right. And I think what kind of like motivated me, what made me see that like their way to live, like these people might be onto something. When I sat in AA in the room and I heard people telling stories of that they'd done, that was in my eyes, like at first I would hear people be like, oh yeah, I stole from my parents. And I was like, I've never stolen from my parents. Like I would never steal from my parents. And then as my addiction
Yeah,
progressed,
I'd be scared to steal from your parents.
right? Like they're,
Your dad, all he'd have to do is look at me and I'd be like,
oh, my poor daddy. Yeah. But I connected with people. I heard myself in their stories over time, and I saw that their lives were better, and I was like, okay, like if these people come from where I come from and their lives are so much better, then maybe I'll stick around for a little bit. Maybe I'll do what they're telling me to do, and maybe my life will get better. And I think that's where in AA they call it the miracle. They say that's when the miracle happens, when you start to experience it for yourself.
yeah. Yeah. And it's beautiful to hear you talk about miracles and spirituality, because
I know
that wasn't your journey later. So again, I just want to like commend you for that. Another question that someone wrote in was, how do you get out of a funk when you're having a bad day?
I've done a lot of therapy. That's another aside from AA and recovery, I think for me, recovery is like a holistic thing. You know, it's not linear. There's a lot of things that kind of go into it. And I will also be 100% transparent and say that I think there's people that are addicts and alcoholics that develop mental illness through their addictions. And I think there's people that have mental illness that use alcohol and drugs to cope. And I'm the second. I've had mental illness, and drugs and alcohol were my solution. And so I am medicated. I've found medications. It's taken me years and years and years, but I found medications that work for me, that help me to kind of stay like even keeled. And through therapy, I've developed tools that kind of help me to just like balance my emotions better. And then of course there's times where I lose my shit and I'm screaming and crying over the littlest thing, and my head goes to drugs and my head goes to alcohol, and like, wouldn't it be nice to just zone out for a bit? But I think that's where the friendships and recovery come in. And that's when I pick up the phone and I text someone or I call someone. And sometimes I'm like, hey, what are you doing? I don't even make it about myself. I just want someone else to tell me about their day so I can not think about myself. Or sometimes if I'm at a 10 where I literally think I'm going to go drink right now, I'll call my friend, whoever that may be, and be like, hey, I'm going to drink. Like, pick me up. Let's go to a meeting. And that's where nowadays, that's where I engage in AA, is when I'm at that level. But the reason that I feel like I have a choice to do that now is because I instilled that in myself in the first year or two. I went to a meeting every single day for the first year of my sobriety. Like, I was like, oh my God, I was so into AA. And I think that built a really solid foundation. So yeah, I hope that answers.
I love your sharing. And I also just, again, that radical vulnerability, for you to be so vulnerable, to be able to call that person.
Oh yeah, it takes a lot.
I mean, it seems like a journey. It's like, reminds me of Siddhartha, of like walking on the thorns and like just being so like, here I am, take me as I am, you know?
Yeah.
Earlier I was talking about like my ego sometimes running the show, and it's like, yeah, I don't think you can do that and be in recovery. I don't think you can live in a place of ego and be in recovery.
Well, that's battle. And that's why, like, when you and I were connecting about doing this, and I told you that I identify as an egomaniac with an inferiority complex. Like,
yeah, and I was like, that's not you.
That's how I feel. That's who I am inside. That's who I truly feel like I am inside, is I am better than everyone. I know best, but I'm also a piece of shit. You know, like, it's like, I feel like both things are true about myself. And that's why I have to call myself out on my shit. And that's why I have to be willing to be vulnerable and to admit when I'm wrong and to feel okay. I think that's a lot of what recovery is about, is just like being okay with not being okay.
Yeah. And that's what we all need to do, sober or not. I think everyone's addicted to something, myself included. It may not come in the form of drugs or alcohol, but it may be addicted to connection, right? Like I'm addicted to talking to people. I'm addicted to making new friends. I'm addicted right now to Instagram. Let's be honest. I'm building a show on Instagram Live. I'm spending way too much time on this platform, but it's all in the name of spreading consciousness. Baby.
Yeah.
But even still, it's like, it's exactly what you said about owning our shit, being able to communicate it, humbling ourselves and presenting to the world like, hey, I don't have all the answers and I'm not a perfect being. And the only thing that's going to help me be the best that I can be is what I'm hearing you say is community.
Yeah.
And like so many problems would be solved by that. So I could talk to you for hours. Is that your puppy or fur ball? Yeah. Is he going to be on the show? Hi.
I just moved into a new apartment recently, so he's still kind of getting used to it, and he still barks at a lot of the noises. But
he's wonderful.
Real quick, yeah, I think that you're right about what you're saying, and I think that everyone could use maybe not a 12-step program, but the principles of it. And I talked about how it's a path to enlightenment, and I think that that is something that, yeah, that just like everyone could benefit from. And that's why spirituality is so important, not only to people that are in recovery, but to everyone. And that's why I think if religion works for you, if that's your spirituality, then like no judgment.
Yeah, totally. Do your thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I also think one of the reasons we're having like all this bringing to light of like the pedophilia that's been going on in America and the modern day slavery and like the race issues and horrible injustices that have been taking place in the Black community for, I mean, since they were brought to this country, quite honestly, there's this like need for spirituality. Like, I think we're having a spiritual crisis in America. I think that's what we're facing. I think we lost, like we had religion, right? And then that is flawed and comes with its own set of issues. And then now a lot of people have left the church, right? The only churches that are growing worldwide are the evangelical sections of every religion. Otherwise, no religions are growing, which it is for me terrifying. But it's also just like, I get it, right? Because those evangelicals are like extremely tight knit and they provide a lot of what's missing in society, which is like community resources, like advocacy, like knowing that someone will support you. Like they, you know, they take care of their own, and that's why they're growing. And they also,
that's why we need community, because it's so vital to our existence.
Yeah. And so how can we create that without a God to praise or without a, you know, a deity or a building to go into to worship? Like, how do we create a spiritual country?
Oh my God. That is a loaded question.
That's my last question to you. If you could instill, like, how could you instill a sense of spirituality in all people on this planet? Like, if you had some magic wand you could wave, or.
I think that the first step is self-awareness. I think that once we have a relationship with ourselves, that's where the magic begins, because we're going to be with ourselves our whole lives, right? So we might as well invest time in liking ourselves. And in relationship with ourselves, I think, is kind of that jumping off point.
So that would be your way of instilling spirituality in the world, is starting with sense of self.
Yeah, I mean, I think it sounds corny as fuck, but like for me, that's been my experience.
Well, no, because it's like, how can I be a part of something if I don't even know myself?
Yeah, and also, I mean, the community piece, because I've heard this rhetoric before of like, oh, if you don't love yourself, then you can't be in a relationship. And like, I think that's fucking bullshit. I think that people that are learning to love themselves are just as deserving of love as people who love themselves. And I think that we can help each other learn to love ourselves. So I guess it's kind of like a dual thing. I guess it's like being in a relationship with ourselves, and that self-awareness allows us to be open and vulnerable with those around us who can in turn help us to love ourselves more.
Yeah, I love that. There's a Hafiz, I believe it's Hafiz or Rumi, but I think it's Hafiz quote that says, I wish I could show you, like in your darkest hour, the incredible light of your own being. And that's what
I love
communication
that.
is. Yeah, it's like shining a mirror in someone of like
Mhm.
their light and their shoes. So thank you for shining your light and your glory onto me and the Conscious Hotline. I love you.
Of course.
This was so good. I could literally talk to you for hours, but
Yeah.
I am really
We need
grateful
to
for your
catch
time.
up.
Yes,
We need to have a
we'll do an
combo.
offline chat
Yeah.
for sure. I love you. I'm grateful
I love
for
you
you.
so
Thank
much.
you so much.
Of
And
course.
just keep being your radiant, brilliant, smart, hardworking, talented, loving self.
I love you.
Love you too. Thank you.
You're welcome. Bye.